My name is Tim Howell, and this is my presentation on Daniel Goleman and emotional intelligence, and more specifically, how EI relates to conflict and conflict management. Daniel Goleman is a world-renowned psychologist. He is a former science journalist for the New York Times. He's a best-selling author with more than 10 titles to his name. He continues to lecture to professional groups, and he's the recipient of a Lifetime Career Award from the American Psychological Association. Emotional intelligence has been around for a long time. It's nothing new. But the term emotional intelligence wasn't coined until 1990 when Peter Salovey and John Mayer published their work titled Emotional Intelligence. In 1995, Daniel Goleman produced his book, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ, and at that point, EI was pushed from relative obscurity and into the public limelight. In defining EI, Mayer, Roberts, and Barsade state emotional intelligence concerns the ability to carry out accurate reasoning about emotions and the ability to use emotions and emotional knowledge to enhance thought. In essence, they're linking emotional intelligence or emotions to cognitive thought, whereas Daniel Goleman states emotional intelligence is the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing emotions well in ourselves and in our relationships. At that point, he is identifying and harnessing emotions for dealing with relationships and motivation. Now, for the sake of this presentation, I'm only dealing with Daniel Goleman's version of emotional intelligence, and in it he has 5 conscripts, or competencies rather. The first is self-awareness, and this is the idea of understanding that emotions exist and they are part of your life. The next is self-regulation, and that is dealing with emotions and employing them in effective manners. The next is motivation, and this is not motivation from the outside, but from inside, and deriving joy or whatever from what you do. The next is empathy, and this is the idea of understanding or recognizing other people's emotions and understanding them, or at least attempting to understand them. And then there are social skills, which is the construct of all 4 of the other ones culminated together to form how you interact with other people. Now, the amygdala, the little pea-sized part of your brain, is the portion responsible for rapid process of emotion reactions. It is the fight, flight, or freeze reaction generator. All sensory perception comes through the amygdala before it is allowed to go on to the higher functions of the brain. It stems from the old adage of, do I eat it or does it eat me? Now, when the amygdala decides that it's going to eat me and therefore reacts, that becomes an amygdala hijack. Sometimes it's a good thing. We don't want to have to stop and think about whether that snake is going to bite us or not. We just want to jump back away from it and get it out of our way. But that is the difference between a reaction and a response. During an amygdala hijack, we simply have an emotional reaction. There's a snake, get away from it. Or there's a hot pan, drop it. Again, these are good situations. There's a big guy that just insulted my wife. That's a good time to have a response instead of a reaction. If you react, you may try to reach up and punch the guy and subsequently get pounded into oblivion. Whereas if you respond, you may actually walk away without broken bones. So in order to deal with an amygdala hijack, you first have to recognize that it is happening when it is happening. You have to have the intelligence, the emotional intelligence, to understand that what is going on. The very next step is the fact that you have to then decide to regulate it. Or not. But make the conscious effort of whether this is what you want to do or not. It is, don't let your amygdala take control and do what you think it does. Now, a lot of people wonder how emotions actually tie into things, considering a lot of people look at emotions and they think they are very illogical in an otherwise logical situation. And a prime example would be building a fence. If a person puts a fence up, or there's a fence, they discover that their property fence, the one that they thought was on their line for however long, they find out that it's not, and the neighbor says, I'm going to tear it down. In theory, this is fairly logical. It's on your fence, is on their property. They don't want it. Take it down. The problem is that your granddad built that fence. When you were 2 years old, you helped him build that fence. Therefore, it is your granddaddy's fence, and you don't want anybody destroying what that legacy from him. Your emotions are completely tied up into what it would otherwise be logical. Now, as we've just discussed, we do know that emotions are interactive and they're tied up with everything we do. And as Lindner states, today we know that thought, behavior, and feelings are closely connected. They're all tied together, whether we like it or not, and we have to deal with them accordingly. And because of this, and because we are of the mind of a situation where it's trying to say this is strictly business, it's nothing personal, and there's no emotions involved, this is just business, we are in a situation, and this is what she had stated, was all this is occurring at a time when humankind remains blind to the fact that it is emotionally unprepared. It really thinks that everything is about business, and there is a difference. They have to learn to move back and forth, get into the other's perspectives and feelings, and then step back into our own perspectives. Again, this is that empathy thing. We have to be able to see what's going on with other people. Now, emotional intelligence and conflict resolution, or understanding how to resolve conflicts, it really comes into play. And to start with, we can look at how Morton Deutsch talks about the cooperative versus competitive. And he states that a cooperative or win-win orientation to resolve a conflict enormously facilitates constructive resolution. So in most situations, or in a lot of situations, a cooperative approach is typically better for resolving disputes. Typically, or usually in a mediation session, that's what we are trying to accomplish, is a cooperative approach, not a cooperative collaborative, not a competitive. We don't want to win-lose. We don't want that. So, and as Jordan and Troth state, Goleman suggests that individuals with high emotional intelligence will have superior conflict resolution skills, engaging in greater collaboration. They also state that the emotionally intelligent individual may adopt a range of conflict resolution styles depending on the situation. So not only are emotionally intelligent people more inclined to function cooperatively, they're also able to interchange as needed, and therefore should be able to resolve conflicts better. Now, furthermore, Daniel states that emotions are contagious, and therefore we influence other people's moods. So if I'm in a good mood, the people I'm dealing with are more likely going to be in a good mood, or maybe in a better mood than they were if I wasn't in a good mood. And Gross, Halpern, and Porat state that research suggests that negative emotions lead to the rejection of positive information about the opponent and lead people to oppose renewal of negotiations, compromise, and reconciliation. So again, if you're in a foul mood or you come in with a negative attitude and this will never work, that's going to affect how people appear, how they're going to see it. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce their names, but they state that conflict resolution is a human process where communication and trust are important ingredient to success, regardless of how you define it. If a mediator, facilitator, or trainer is unaware of the effect that his or her behavior, thoughts, or beliefs can have on clients, the result can be detrimental or disempowering. Again, what you say, how you act, how you do, can affect exactly how everybody else in the room feels. So, again, they state that Goleman's work makes a compelling case for the importance of emotion in what we believe to be a rational decision-making process. The simple idea of how do we deal with the fence shows that although it should be a rational understanding, you have the problem of emotions. They do have effect. But the question becomes that if you are not an emotionally intelligent person, is there anything you can do about it, or are you just SOL? Well, Goleman says the good news is that emotional intelligence can be learned. Individually, we can add these skills to our tool set. Now, a lot of Daniel's work from the past was on working with school kids. He has dedicated a lot of his life to training emotional intelligence. In his book, Working with Emotional Intelligence, he covers a lot about dealing with it as an adult. At Jordan and Troth, in a study that they had done, they determined that emotional intelligence improvement programs may be a means by which human resource development practitioners can provide employees with additional skills to address conflict. So, if you're not emotionally intelligent, there is still hope for you. You can learn it. So, just to sum up, or to give you something to talk about in case I didn't leave enough for you. Yeah, right. How do you deal with emotions? How do emotions affect conflict, and how does conflict affect emotions? Is there a symbiotic nature going on there? Is emotional intelligence important regarding managing conflict? Do you believe that emotions and understanding emotions or emotional intelligence matter, or is this the logical process? And the next is, do you believe that emotional intelligence is fixed like IQ, or can it be learned? And that's all I have for you. I appreciate you watching this video, and thanks again.